Welcome to Ask SME Anything. Your chance to ask the ITProTV subject matter experts questions live. Here's your host, Don Pizzette.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Ask SME Anything, the show brought to you by ITProTV, where you, the viewers, get a chance to ask questions of our subject matter experts, or subject matter amateurs, depending on who it is that we drag onto the show. Today, I grabbed the first homeless person I could find, which was Mr. Daniel Lowry, and dragged him into the office. Daniel, thank you for being in the studio with us.
No problem, and can you spare some change?
And, one of the things I like to do at the beginning of each of these episodes, Daniel, is to let the viewers know exactly what your area of expertise are, because live during the show, anybody can throw a question out there just by jumping over to Twitter and posting a question and tagging it with the hashtag of Ask SME Anything. That's SME as in subject matter expert. So throw a question out there, and if it's in Daniel's wheelhouse, we will try and answer it live during the show. If it is not in Daniel's wheelhouse, don't let that hold you back. Post the question anyway, because we film these with all of our subject matter experts here. So if you have Windows, Mac, Linux, database, ITIL, project management, whatever your question is, throw it out there. We will get to it sooner or later. If you're an ITProTV subscriber, you can also use our Q&A forum found right on the website. Post your question there because we prioritize those. We make sure we get to those first, and then we field all of our questions from the general public via the hashtag AskSMeAnything. So, Daniel, kicking things off here, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about what your area of expertise is or are?
Oh, sure. No problem. Well, I've got a pretty diverse background, actually. I've worked in systems administration, network administration, workstation, desktop support, done basically the gamut of normal IT stuff. And then I started getting more interested in the security side of things. So I started diving into that, and I got my CEH. I took a OSCP. I've got a few badges from Pentester Lab. I've taken quite a few different pen testing classes and things along those lines. So I've got quite a bit of a background when it comes to red teaming for the most part, and some blue teaming as well. Doing our CISA Plus and stuff like that.
And you mentioned security, but you're no slouch at Linux either, right?
I've worked my way around the Linux board from time to time. I do know it quite a bit, and I've been working with that actually since right around 98, I want to say. Yeah, 1998 was my first Red Hat distro. Someone said, "Here, see if you can install that. If you can, I'll be impressed." About 2 hours later, I was like, "What up?" So I can't get this installed. Can you help?
2 hours and 30 floppy disks later.
Yeah, that's right. This one was actually on a couple of CDs, I think, at the time. But
oh, you're lucky.
He had access to, he had an actual copy.
All right. Well, enough memory lane for us here. Let's jump out to our first question, which is coming at us from, where did this one come from? Oh, it came from Twitter, right? Yes. So this one's out there from the hashtag AskSMeAnything. The question is, Daniel, what is your favorite pen testing distro? And we were just waxing reminiscent about Linux, but they're just asking pen testing in general. So if you're going to be messing around doing some penetration testing, what's your operating system or distribution of choice?
That's a really good question, and it's a very pertinent question, to be honest with you. You want to start being able to work with the tools that pen testers use, or red teaming stuff. You want to get involved with that. You want to start practicing. You start learning. These distributions are out there that will afford you the ability to go ahead and just basically turn the key, jump in the car, and drive away, right? There are a few of them out there. One of them is basically the gold standard. We got a new guy on the block that's making his bones, up and coming. We're going to take a look at that. But what's my favorite? I'm going to go ahead and say, I'll have to say Parrot is my favorite, Parrot Linux. I use Kali a little bit more. I've bounced back and forth. I've been using it here lately.
Kali's certainly the more popular of the two, right?
Exactly.
You hear about it in the press. They used it on Mr. Robot. It's the one that's the Hollywood darling.
Yeah, that's the one I would say is probably the gold standard right now. If you say pen testing distro, someone's going to go Kali Linux. And for good reason. It's a really good distribution. It works very well. It's got all the basic tools that you would want to have. It's got quite a few tools, as a matter of fact, that you want to have lurking in the system. So it is at turnkey option. It has been around for quite some time. It's been field tested by many different people. It's gotten its reputation for good reason, because it is a very robust distribution and easy to get up and running. It's not a huge download, so I like that. It take you a few minutes to get the ISO or the VM. I think you can also grab some pre-built VMs like OVAs and just import them into your hypervisor of choice, and you're off to the races. Or if I just want to grab that ISO, slap it on a free box I've got running around, and use that as my pen testing workstation, it works really, really well.
All right, so I just got you to talk positively about Kali Linux, but that is certainly not the first distro that you said, right? So you said Parrot Linux.
I said Parrot.
And I'm familiar with the Pentest distro, although I've never actually run it myself. So why do you prefer that one over Kali?
I prefer Parrot because it seems to be a bit more stable, to be honest with you. So when I first found Parrot, I slapped it in a VM, ran it up the flagpole, turned it on, watched it hum, and said, okay, it looks a little dated, and that's fine. And I've got both. I've got Kali and I've got Parrot running on my machine right here. So we can bring that up and we can take a look at the visual differences. Let's just talk about it for a moment. Parrot, once I got the visuals the way I kind of liked them, the look and feel going the way I liked it, man, I loved being able to actually like update the system and it not break. Kali has, in my experience, this is anecdotal evidence, but I've come across this quite a bit anecdotally as well, that you run some updates on the thing and then things start not working. And God forbid you run dist upgrade on that thing. It's an Ubuntu variant, so you do a sudo apt dist upgrade, and I can't tell you how many times that has broken me completely. I've had to go in and like do some fixing to get it back up and running. And that's not what I want to do. I just want to be able to, because you get used to the platform. You get used to, well, I've been working on this specific pen testing job, or I'm learning this specific thing inside of my lab environment, and I'm in here a month. You kind of get like, it becomes your daily driver. You get to where you're comfortable there, and then you don't want to leave that comfort. It's an old sweater. You just pull over on a cold winter day, right? You love the way it feels. You love the way it works. Doing everything you want it to do. So you're like, yeah, I do want to keep it up to date. You throw an update command at it, and then stuff breaks. And then that breaking tends to be a bit systemic. You watch it like the tumblers just start falling. Once the first domino goes down, this thing starts becoming super unstable, or at least in my experience, that's what it does. I don't want that. And I didn't get that experience out of Parrot. Not only that, but it seems to be a little more featureful when it comes to the tools. Now, don't get me wrong. Kali's got tools upon tools you'll never even use, maybe, right? You know, it's nice to have them if they're there, but that's kind of more Parrot's philosophy. Parrot's like, well, let's just put everything in the kitchen. I think the ISO is like twice the size of Kali's. So we're talking 3.5 gigs versus Kali's like 1 something, right? So you're going to get a lot more features. You're going to get a lot more stability, and it just works a whole lot nicer. So that's why I've tended to like Parrot a bit more. That being said, Don, what do you say we take a look at these things and see the difference of them?
Yeah, give us a quick tour. And you know, while we're pulling up your desktop, you know, we've mentioned Kali and we've mentioned Parrot, but there are other options out there as well too, right?
Totally. Black Arch Linux is out there. Even Red Hat, if you're into the Red Hat variants. I'm not up on my Red Hat. Don, you'll probably know which one it is. They have a pen testing distro as well. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
I'm actually not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm surprised because Don loves this Red Hat.
Absolutely. And you know, I think about like there's Security Onion and a few other like purpose-built distros. But yeah, I'm not familiar with the Red Hat one.
Yeah, but I've played with some of those. Just you know, it's one man's junk's another man's treasure kind of thing goes on. Maybe you'll like it. You know, go check it out, and you can say, "Oh man, everybody should be running Black Arch. It's amazing. It's the best thing ever." Could be. I just wasn't. I was like, I get all this with Kali, or I get that with Parrot, and it wasn't worth the jump to that for something I already liked, if that makes sense. But for playing around, I totally would go check those things out. So let's check out Kali. Let's see what Kali looks like. Let's go ahead and bring up my screen. Here's the default installation of Kali. For the most part, I have been using this distro for a little bit here, so we'll see a little bit difference. But as far as what you're looking at right now, you're not. This is the vanilla wrapper, right? If you look on your sidebar, you got most of your standard applications that you're going to be using inside of a penetration test. We've got Firefox ESR. Firefox is the browser of choice for penetration testing because of the plugins that are available and the way that it works. People tend to like it a whole lot better.
All the thousands of Grease Monkey scripts that are out there.
Yeah, don't forget those, right? Amazing stuff. And the ESR is a special version because Firefox Quantum that's out right now as the main distribution of Firefox, a lot of the old stuff like the Grease Monkey scripts and whatnot, they're coming along, but not everything works. All the old oldies and goldies that you're used to might not actually run as a plugin or a tool or whatever in that. So ESR is going to what you want, and Kali Linux knows that, so it's already built in by default. What else do we have here? We got Metasploit Framework, which is an attack framework. Basically, has a bunch of pre-built point and click and hey, look, a shell kind of idea that goes on with Metasploit. Very cool stuff. Armitage. We got Burp Suite, Attack Proxy. Maltego, Beef, which is fun, playing with cross-site scripting. It's always a good time. But it's all right over here on the side. You got LeafPad for, I don't need to cut and copy and paste some stuff into really quickly. Actually, it comes in more handy than you would think. And having it right there on the side, I like that design UI right there. And then all your settings. I've thrown on the system monitor just because I needed it for something specific. So that's probably one thing you won't see. I've put that in myself. Let's take a look at some of the other things that we can see inside of Kali. Let's go into the applications. You'll notice that they've broken this down, which is very nice of them. The people at Offensive Security, they are the people that creates Kali Linux, done a great job. And they've broken these down into different types and kind of following the methodology, to be honest with you, of what you might do in a pen test: information gathering, vulnerability analysis, web application analysis, and then all the tools that go along with that are right there as well. So if I need to, I need to gather I need some enumeration. I need to figure some stuff out about this guy, this target I've got over here. What am I going to do? Well, I'm probably going to run over here and fire up Sparta, maybe ZenMap, Recon NG, very nice, right? There's good old Nmap, NetDiscover. I use these things on like a daily basis for when I'm practicing for doing penetration testing activities. So having it right there, top of the list, ready to rock, that's where I start. So that's where most people start. So that's where they put it right there.
Yep, and so you fire this up, you got all the tool suites right there. Mm-hmm. One of the best things about Kali, in my opinion, is the fact they organize all the tools to make it easy to get at, but not designed to be your daily driver operating system, right? So you run it like Daniel's doing in a virtual machine, or you boot off of a live CD, or you run your scans, gather your information, and so on. Now, that's the UI for Kali, which I think most of us have seen at some point. For people who are new to Parrot, though, can you show us that one?
Let's take a look at old Parrot and see what she looks like. It's got some cool cubes here, but we also have a lovely background with a pretty Parrot that they have available for us. But really, not too lot of difference. It's running the Mate or Mates desktop graphical environments. But really the difference, other than that, comes in when you get into these applications. Also, in some of the philosophy of use in Parrot is just a tad bit different than it is with Kali. Kali is strictly penetration testing with a little bit of forensics thrown on top for flavor. But with Parrot, they're really into like anonymizing and things like that. So you see this like anon surf, and you can turn this on, start and stop this, change your exit nodes, check your IP. If you go down into like the internet, you'll see Tor is already installed. Onion share, looking for onion circuits. A lot of anonymizing features are built into Parrot. So if you wanted to use this for like anonymous web surfing, doing all that, keeping yourself a little more secure out there on the interwebs, maybe Parrot is the way to go. And that's probably a good reason why, or I say a good reason, another reason you might want to go with it if you were looking to keep it as the daily driver, not just do pen testing. It would be good for just regular daily use as well. Hey, but the games is the most important thing. Export is there. If it's not there, you're going to have a bad time. So we got to get that.
Solitaire or free cell, though.
No. Only chess. That's right. We got standards. That's right. But really, we're looking for this Parrot icon. This is the meat and potatoes of this. What's installed? Now we're seeing some very similar types of things: information gathering, vulnerability analysis, web application analysis. Very similar in its breakdown of the types of tools that you might use. But when it gets different is, the most used tools, and you'll notice that it looks very similar to what we saw inside of Kali as well. But you go to information gathering and you start moving these things out. Look how much more tools this has just for information gathering. So you're not left out in the woods in any way. They try to leave no stone unturned as far as tool gathering for this distribution, and they've done a great job of just making sure that everything they could find. If you want it, it's probably already installed. You don't have to go through the headache of finding it, downloading, installing it. Even if it's a simple thing, just doing a sudo apt-get install X tool, you still have to do that, right? Where here they try to just say, it's going to be there. It's probably there. If it's not there, email us. We'll slap it in. Hopefully, if you can get enough static going on, people are crying out pitchforks and torches at the gates of the Parrot Sec, going, "Where is our whatever tool? Got to have that." They'll probably get put in there for you. But man, this thing has everything under the sun, and it doesn't matter what topic you're underneath. Web application. Look at this. I mean, you just got everything you want, all the oldies and goldies right here. But then you can drill down to get some of the more esoteric tools that you just might be like, oh man, this would be perfect if I had that installed. And I got to take the time to get that done. No, Parrot, you've already got it. Nice. Now there's a third option, and I think it's a really good option, to be honest with you, is the build your own, right? Maybe you don't like, Parrot's got too much, Kali's got not enough. Or I don't like Kali. I don't want to run that. It's unstable. I don't like Parrot. Maybe look and feels not my cup of tea. What if I just ran my own distro that I like? I know I like it, like Ubuntu, Mint, whatever. Don likes Red Hat stuff. Throw that down. And I wanted that, but I want to have all those tools too.
That's something that I've done where, because I'm not a pen tester,
right?
But I use some of those tools for various purposes and legal purposes.
Yes, of course.
Usually like blue teaming, right? Auditing my own network. And I might need 5 tools.
Right.
Well, I don't want to run a whole custom distribution just for 5 tools. So I'll usually install packages if I can find them, or I might have to build them from source. So now I'm downloading source code and building, which is a pain in the butt. And even with just 4 or 5 tools, it's very common for me to run into conflicts where one requires a certain library version and another one requires a different library version, and now I get a conflict and I can't run the tool.
Right.
So kind of building your own is a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Or at least it has been for me.
Totally right. For most people, they would probably say they've at least had similar experiences, if not the same experience. So what do, right? Well, the cool thing is Dave Kennedy has developed a tool. He's one of the writers of the Metasploit framework. He also does the security social engineering toolkit. He's a super brilliant guy, a lot of fun to listen to. Go listen to his talks and stuff online. They're a lot of fun. He's an interesting dude. He came up with the Pen Testers toolkit, right? I think our Pen Tester framework. Let's go over here. I've got this Linux Mint installation. I'm going to go ahead and log in. It likes to log me out. I haven't set that yet to not do that. Let me bring up a browser, and so I go to DuckDuckGo. So I've installed Linux Mint. I've worked with Linux Mint. I think it's great. Works great. I want to use that. I notice it's quite stable for the things that I do. I want to make this my pen testing platform. So we say the Pen Testers. What is it? Framework. Yeah, there we go. And we go out to the old interwebs there, and we can. Well, I guess it helps if I finish this out. Oh, there we go. And there we go. Pen Testers Framework from Trusted Sec. And it's super easy to get going. But basically what it does is it works a lot like Metasploit. So if you're used to Metasploit, if you're used to the SE toolkit, this is going to be very familiar ground. You're going to take a look at the modules. You're going to use the module that you want. And what you can say is, I want to build a framework, a pen testing framework on top of my existing distro. I want to do it automatically. It takes all the headache and all the work out of it. Now, the easiest thing to do is just run the command that they give you right here to get it installed, git clone, and it gives you the Git repository. So I can copy that, run that in my browser, fire that off, paste that in. I guess I would need to sudo. So Control A, like so, give my password, and then this would get installed. Once I have it installed, I would be able to then fire it off, start it up, and say, you know what? They've they're developing, as you can see down here, this penetration testing execution standards. So it eliminates a lot of things that are hard to use, would make sure that all the things that are mostly used are there, commonly used stuff, and builds that framework for me and tells you, you know what, just run the basically install and update all module, sit back and let it fire up. And when it's done, you've got yourself a fully blown penetration testing framework built on your Linux distro of choice, and it was headache free. So that's what I really like about this.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the Git repository, it's not stale at all, right? A lot of things here have been updated 5 days ago. You know, really, really keeping that one up to date. So honestly, that's a good alternative to building your own pen testing studio. But do be careful that if this is your daily driver, it's your laptop with your normal OS that you always run, and you install a ton of hacking tools on your system, there are issues with creating an increased attack surface and other things like that. So it is still a good idea to do a virtual machine or something of that nature, but it does give you the ability to pick your own distro. So that is a nice thing.
I do like it.
Yeah. And I know amongst the ITProTV hosts, it's kind of funny because we have this, I don't think there's two hosts that like the same distro.
Yeah.
We have people that are Fedora, Red Hat,
true.
Ubuntu, Debian. It's kind of across the board. All right, Daniel. Well, excellent answer to that question. And in fact, one of the tools you mentioned while you were showing Kali Linux was Burp Suite. And we had a question come in via Twitter about that one. Somebody saying, I keep hearing about Burp Suite, probably from people like yourself. Yeah. So what is that and why is it so popular?
That's a really good question, actually. What is Burp Suite? Well, the quick and dirty is Burp Suite is a web vulnerability attack proxy, right? So it does vulnerability assessment and also basically will allow you to proxy all the information. When you make a request between you and a website and you want to have a conversation, a lot of times you're going to be posting data to it and you're going to be getting data from it, right? These are post and get requests. And sometimes you want to map these things out. And what Burp Suite does is it basically gives you one area, one thing, one tool that you run. This is all in Wonder, right? Where you fire up Burp Suite and you can do things like crawl the website, find all the links. Where do they go, right? I can intercept all the data that's either going to or from me and the target per se, right? You can also do a lot of things to where you automate certain types of attacks or information gathering capabilities. And it does it really well and it does it really easily. So Burp Suite has gotten very popular, and it's probably why you're hearing about it quite often, because you can literally grab a distro, whatever you like, install Burp Suite, and you can do some pretty thorough penetration testing with just Burp Suite. So that would be the reason I would say why you're seeing it so much, why it's so popular, why you see it installed on Kali, why you see it installed on Parrot, why if you don't have it installed, you need to go get it installed right now. It's got great documentation. It's from a company called Portswigger. So you just go online, do your Google search for Portswigger, and you go there, download, install if you don't have it, or just grab a copy of Kali and go buck wild. It's super easy to work with. I like it a lot.
And it's inexpensive, right? Like a lot of the bigger tools, if you want a Nessus license, it's $2,200, $2,500 a year. If I remember right, Burp Suite, it's $300 a year?
Yeah, three something. Yeah.
So very affordable, definitely something you stick in your pen testing toolkit. Another reason why it's popular is because it is a proxy. More and more companies are writing web applications these days instead of writing standard applications because they don't know if you're going to run Windows or whatever, but they know you'll have a web browser. So web applications are super popular, but almost everything uses SSL these days. So, or TLS, right?
Yeah, TLS.
If everything's being encrypted, I know, it's sad that we have to say stuff like that.
I know.
But, I used to be able to run like Wireshark and capture network traffic and analyze it, and you can find all sorts of great information. Now you run Wireshark and you're just capturing a bunch of encrypted packets. It's useless information, right? But when you run a utility like Burp Suite, it sits in between you and the websites you're browsing to, and that way it's already decrypted because your browser is about to handle it. and you're able to intercept that information, manipulate it, do a lot of testing, and get you kind of over that hump of dealing with encrypted data. So really, really useful.
And if you want, we can fire it up, take a look at, kind of walk around and see what it looks like, give us some idea of what some of the different tools that are built in can do. So if we want, we can go ahead and do that.
We can do a quick tour. We've got a couple more questions in the hopper, but if it's a brief tour.
Real quick, we'll just go through it here. Let me fire up Burp Suite. It does have a free edition, which is great, the community edition, and it works really well. Basically the same thing as the pay version, Start Burp, except it doesn't have the vulnerability scanner. And typically its ability to scan and do things are throttled back a little bit. So you won't get the speed and the performance out of it, but for the most part, you get the exact same product minus the vulnerability scanner. But here we go. It's a pretty simple interface. Here's your sitemap. Basically, here's where the targets come in. You find the targets you want, you right click, you add it to the scope, you say, this is my scope. This is the website that I want to work with. That way you're not getting superfluous information that's cluttering things up. So there you go. You can define what goes into that scope. Here's the proxy right here. You notice that the intercept comes on. The intercept is basically that functionality that says everything that my computer requests to the website, I want to see it before it goes. And this is really handy when you're working around things like filtering of data as it gets posted to the request. So if you're not allowed to use certain characters maybe in your input data that you're sending to the request of the machine, you could intercept that, change it, and then send it on its way. And that typically goes over to the intruder or the repeater. So the intruder allows me to, you'll get these positions right here, and say, I want to change these values and give it a list of different values I want to work its way through. And it's going to send those very, very quickly and see what output comes from that. The repeater is like basically a one-off version of that. I just want to do this one request. I wanted to make some modifications that are specific to this one request, send it off, and see what the response comes back. A lot of times that's how you do very specific types of testing. Sequencer is looking for issues with random generation entropy. Does it have enough entropy, or is it going to be easily guessed? Decoder, a very helpful thing. You can throw some encrypted strings in there, things like base64, hex values, that kind of stuff, and it'll decode it for you. So you don't have to go to a third-party app. Like I said, built into one spot. Compare, basically diff, throw some files in, look for differences. You tell what kind of differences you want it to look for, and it'll show you that stuff. Typically, though, I spend my time over here in the proxy looking at the HTTP history, sending history requests into the repeater and the intruders, and trying to find stuff through there. But that's why it's so popular. It's super easy to use and does a great job.
Yeah, and one of the other cool features in there is that you can do cookie manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd be surprised. I mean, first off, you'd be surprised at just what information is found inside of a cookie.
Yeah.
But if you modify cookies, you can do all sorts of crazy things. You change a session ID inside of a cookie, and all of a sudden you're logged into some other user.
Yeah. Actually did that today on the Slice of Plus show.
Oh, geez. Stuff that shouldn't be possible, but it does work.
Happen.
So as a pen tester, that's a valuable tool for you. All right, let's move on to our next question, Daniel. This is another one which, as always, if you guys want to ask questions, make sure that you throw it out there in Twitter at #AskSMeAnything. That's where this question came from. And it is, I want to set up a home lab for learning. Any advice? And this is a great question because when you're learning pen testing, it is super easy to break the law and get arrested. Yeah. So nobody wants that. Daniel, if we want to learn how to do pen testing, but we don't want to get arrested, like what is your advice for somebody on how to set up a lab?
If you don't like the idea of 3 hots on a cot, then yeah, it's probably not a good idea to get out there and start pen testing things that you don't own. So you have to build some sort of environment or have an environment available to you that you are allowed to do these things. And the good news is that you can do both. So I would say, if I were starting off, and when I was starting off, I was looking for resources anywhere. How do I do this? First idea, obviously, is to get a couple old machines and slap an operating system on them. Maybe build a website, put it on there, build it yourself, right? The whole idea, it's a really good way to go, to be honest with you, as far as learning goes, because you're going to learn a lot of all of the back end stuff, how to build a website, how to connect it to a database, and what goes into making a bad website, because now you're trying to attack it. So this is probably, for learning purposes, one of the best ways you can go. Grab a couple old cheap laptops, make one a Linux server running Apache, do a LAMP stack or whatever. You can even do it with Windows, to be honest with you. There's XAMPP that you can grab, throw that on top of your Windows distribution. It'll run Apache. It'll run not MySQL, but MySQL, PHP, Python, these things. It gets it installed. You can get a really quick and dirty up and running website that you can attack on your own and figure out and just start playing with the tools. You have another laptop over here. You've got your Kali distro slapped on that. You network them together. You're learning a lot about networking, systems administration, development, DevOps, and pen testing, because all that stuff goes together, to be honest with you. So you want to know these things. So if you have the ability to do that, but if you really just want to I just want to turn the key and kind of get into this, there's a great resource out there. I really appreciate the effort that they put in this website. It's called VulnHub. And at VulnHub, you can download vulnerable appliances that are pre-baked. They're built for you to test and learn with. And it's been a fantastic resource for not only myself, but other people I know. They're really fun because a lot of them are kind of built around an idea of a theme, but it allows you to go, you know what? I need to learn more about SQL injection. And one of the users that posts a lot on there, they also have their own website, which is also a great resource, which is Pen Tester Lab. They build ISOs that you can download and get from VulnHub and test specific types of attacks. So like cross-site scripting or MySQL, SQL injection. If you want to learn more about that, Pen Tester Lab has done a really good job of either you can go to their website or you can go to VulnHub and download the ISOs, install them in a virtual machine, install your Kali Linux in a virtual machine, install Parrot in a virtual machine, get you a little virtual network going, and make them isolated. So you have that ability to do that, isolate that down. It's not getting internet access. You got to remember these things are purposely vulnerable. And so you don't want to be allowing outside access to these things. Once you get this thing up and running, now you start employing your methodology. You should be going. Once you find a vulnerable machine that strikes your fancy out over there on VulnHub, download it, install it. It shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes maybe to get this thing all completely ready to go. Now you're just more worried about your pen testing methodologies and learning the tools that you need to learn to get these things going. So that's probably one of the best ways I've seen.
Now, what if somebody's ready to test their metal, right? They're not employed by an official pen testing firm or anything yet, but they want to test a live system. Are there any ways that we can test a live system and not get arrested?
There actually are. So there's a company called HackerOne. If you've watched the show with me on it and all, you've seen I've got a nice little sticker on the back of my thing. They're a great company, and what they do, they basically facilitate real companies that want to test their web applications, test their websites for vulnerabilities, but it's hard to pay for us. So they're probably doing pen testing per se, but a community of pen testers would sure be probably a whole lot more efficient and effective. And they found that to be quite true. And HackerOne, what they've done is made a place where companies can come and say, I want to do what's called a bug bounty program. I want to open myself up and scope out a certain portion or all of my web presence to the community, the hacker community at large, and let people that want to make their bones as a pen tester or as a bug bounty hunter to earn some money, earn some kudos, earn some swag, and be able to work against a real environment, get some real experience against real stuff, to come together so that you've got a hacker community, you've got the corporate community and governmental community and organizational communities at large. They come together in the HackerOne forum and they say, here's my scope. And a hacker is free to run his tools against X scope machines. Now you got to look at the scope, make sure that you're within that. Don't go outside of those boundaries that they set for you to work with. But if you end up finding a vulnerability and submitting it and they find it to be true, they verify that that is correct, you get a statistical data against you as far as a HackerOne hacker that says, hey, Don was able to find a cross-site scripting vulnerability inside of Uber, right? And Uber verified that was true. Don's not just saying I can do that or that I did that. Uber verified it, and I can look that up and see it. So you get this street cred, as it were, right? Not only that, you find a good enough vulnerability, and they pay you money. And a lot of the hackers who work for HackerOne, I was talking with the guys at over there at HackerOne, they said a lot of guys on average are making a couple of extra grand a year. When I say a couple, I mean $10,000 to $20,000. I don't mean $20. I mean $10,000 to $20,000. Their top level hackers are making up over the range of $300,000 a year. So having fun, playing with real systems, getting real life experience and skills, and getting paid to do it, I find this a fun thing to do.
And not going to real jail.
Yes, not going to real jail. We should make fake cops that come around and, sir, you're going to jail.
The SWAT team busts through the window. Nope, just pretending.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, Daniel. So definitely a lot to think about there. If you're building your own lab, tons of resources that are out there. Yeah. And then there's plenty more beyond that. Those are just the ones that you recommend you use yourself.
Correct.
All right, let's move on to, actually, this will probably be our last question because we run a little long in some of these. So this is another question that came at us from Twitter World, or the Twitter sphere, or whatever it is. Hashtag Ask SME Anything. And the question is, do I need to learn programming to be a security specialist? Now, I guess we could pick at this question a little bit and say, what the heck is a security specialist? But if you're going to work in the security field, do you need to be a developer, Daniel? What do you think?
A developer per se, I would say no. You do not need to be a developer per se. Now, this is my experience. This isn't like the gospel according to Daniel or whatever. That'd be fun to print. But what I have seen in my experience is I've learned as I've gotten into the community. When you say, like you say, security specialist, that's a pretty broad brush. If you mean a blue team, then probably not. Probably not much more than just some scripting. And just for your own benefit, to be honest with you, not necessary. Red teaming stuff, different story. Yeah, you probably need to be familiar. And when you say programming, you do need to understand programming methodologies, basics of programming, maybe not a specific language per se, but at the very least, the ability to look at some code and kind of have a general idea of what's going on. That would be at my bare minimum. I would say, yes, you need to know that.
Yeah, if you're a blue teamer, right, and you're trying to defend a network, and you have a company that develops in-house software, you could be scanning the active application and not have to be a developer.
Right.
But if you have access to the source code, if you had access to that repository, you, in theory, could review all of that code and look for flaws and vulnerabilities, but really your development team should be doing that. You should have security by design, right? That's part of the software development lifecycle. So that should be happening already. You're scanning the active applications, there's your protection. It would certainly help if you knew how to develop in whatever language that was, but there's so many different languages that it's hard to say. But let me stick a different spin on this, Daniel, because I remember something you said to me a few months ago.
Okay.
You took the OSCP training.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're not a developer, although you've had some experience writing a little bit here and there. They suggested a pretty decent skill set on, was it Perl?
Oh, C.
Oh, it was actually C. Never mind, screw that.
Right? So, full disclosure here. When I took the OSCP, you see this a lot with security training. And this is why when I do security training, I try to be straight up realistic. You need to understand programming concepts. What is, the logic behind how programming works? And then you need to learn a programming language, one of them. I would suggest Python, because Python's got some very C-ish stuff, because it basically boils down into C and then C into its lower levels that go on there. But if you can, learn C. If you can, learn Python. Definitely understand Bash, scripting, and probably JavaScript as well. HTML wouldn't hurt. I know the list keeps getting longer and longer, but just in my experience, understanding more about how those languages, PHP, understanding how that language works, understanding how Python works, how not Perl so much anymore, but it does still exist out there. Probably not, but you probably don't have to worry about that. Ruby is getting very popular, right? These things, you want to get a handle on that. Pick one. Like I said, I would start with Python, learn that, and then branch out from there. I would jump to C next, because when I want to download some exploit code off the internet and it's written in C and I compile it and it doesn't work, what do I got to do? Oh, there's all these errors and warnings. I got to fix that. How do I do it? I got to learn more about C. So something you run into.
When you're early in your career and you're just learning about things like cross-site scripting attacks or whatever, you're going to use software tools. Yeah. You're going to use Burp Suite or Metasploiter or some other tool like that to actually carry out your scans and your penetration, right? So you don't have to be a developer to use those. But if you want to make it into the top tier, if you want to be one of those people that isn't just testing for a known vulnerability, but discovering vulnerabilities. And then once you discover a vulnerability, you need to do a proof of concept, show that it can be exploited. There's no tool. You discovered this. You're breaking new ground. So there's no software tool you download. You're going to have to write your own tool. And that's where a lot of these people end up, is if you have some basic Python knowledge. I do hear Python recommended pretty frequently.
It's because it's relatively easy.
And so you can take it, it's got network libraries, and you can say, I need to write a program that reaches out to this MySQL server and sends this type of packet with this type of information to show that this exploit works.
I'll tell you what, when I was learning how to do buffer overflows, which really attributed to my knowledge set in the programming side of things, I was able to very quickly, I said, okay, well, I'll try it in Python because it's supposed to be easy. Look at the documentation of Python, create a network socket, build a fuzzer, because that tool didn't exist for the application I was fuzzing. So I had to build my own, which I was able to do, and then build my own exploit and then package that up so that I could re-exploit at any given time that I want, as long as that system didn't get patched to take away the problem. And it was very informative. It was a good learning experience. And this is why I would say, get into some programming, learn some programming, necessary depending, but I would say just out of safety's sake, go ahead, just learn you some programming. Python, that's where I would start.
Yeah, and in the early stages of your career, you could probably get away with not having it.
Yeah.
But down the road, you'll want it. So it's an important one. All right, well, Daniel, I think we are running out of time for this episode. So we had a couple of good questions, which I appreciate you answering.
Yeah, no problem.
No real stumpers or heavy technical ones today, but all good questions, which we appreciate you guys sending in. And as always, if you're watching this recorded down the road and you think, boy, I really wish I could have asked this question, well, ask away. Throw it out there in Twitter. This isn't like a one-shot deal. Throw them out there. We collect all the questions throughout the week, divide them up based on whoever the expert is that's going to be on there with us, and we answer them. Hopefully right. Usually we try our best to help you guys get all the information you need to be successful, either in your certification progress or just in your general IT skills. And as always, if you want to learn about a lot of the technologies that we talked about, things like Burp Suite, Kali Linux, pen testing in general. That's mostly what this episode's centered around. All of those we have training available for in the ITProTV library. So if you're an ITProTV subscriber, you can jump right in there and watch training on any one of those. If you're not a subscriber, check us out. It's ITPro.tv. But even if you're not a subscriber and you don't watch our training, then how did you hear about us? But if we put all that aside, feel free to ask your questions on Ask SME Anything. That's what this show is all about, a chance for you guys to ask questions, and our subject matter experts get in there and help you find the guidance and correct answer. So, Daniel, thank you for joining us in studio.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And for you viewers out there, thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.